Hello, it's Paige Green from Paige Green's Tutoring, and today we're going to be having a look at going from ratios to percentages and percentages to ratios. Now, if you haven't already, please watch the previous video on ratios to fractions, as that really helps with this session, as we will be using a bit of that knowledge and expanding on it to be able to convert into percentages. So what we're going to do, a little bit like the last video, is we're going to go through a few questions and then I'll get you to have a go at a few on your own. So it says here, a farmer grows leeks and carrots in the ratio 4:6. What percentage are leeks? Now, like I said, we need to think about first going from a ratio to a fraction, and that will help us with the percentage. So first, let's write it as a fraction. Well, I've got 4 parts which are leeks out of a total 10 parts. There's 4 parts, add 6 is 10. Now, to write this as a percentage, I need to create an equivalent fraction, which is over 100. And I can do that by timesing the bottom by 10. Now, whatever I do to the bottom on a fraction, I must do to the top. So that becomes 40. Now, 40 over 100 is just 40%. So looking at the other one then, we're going to do the same here. What percentage are carrots? Well, first, let's write the fraction. So I've got 6 parts over a possible 10. And again, I'm going to create an equivalent fraction over 100. And I can do this by timesing the top and the bottom by 10, which gives me 60 over 100, which is just 60%. Okay, let's have a look at another one, just including 3 parts of a ratio this time. So it says here there are blue, white, and yellow sweets in a bag in the ratio 7:8:10. What percentage are blue? So let's write it as a fraction first. We can see here we've got 7 parts which are blue out of a total of 7 plus 8 plus 10, which is 25. So I've got 7 over 25. So to make this a percentage, just like we did last time, we're going to make the denominator 100. So to make the denominator 100, I need to times the bottom by 4. Now, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I do 7 times 4, which gives us 28. Now, 28 over 100 is just 28%. And we're going to do the same for the white and the yellow. So white, I've got 8 parts out of, again, a possible 25. So to make it into a percentage, I first need to convert it into a fraction over 100, which I do by timesing the top and the bottom by 4, which gives me 32 over 100, which is 32%. Now for my last one, what percentage are yellow? Well, I've got 10 parts out of that 25 parts, and I want to write an equivalent fraction over 100. So I times the top and the bottom by 4, which gives me 40 over 100, which is 40%. And we can see that we've done that right, because if we add all of these together, it's going to give me 100%. And obviously 100% is all the sweets that I've got in the bag. Next, let's have a look at going from a percentage into a ratio. So it says here, in a box there are custard creams and digestives. 40% of the box is custard cream. What percentage are digestives? Now, just like I said in that previous question, 100% is how much I have in total. So if I take away that 40% which are custard creams, I can see that 60% must be digestives. Now thinking about how to write this as a ratio, it wants the ratio of digestives to custard creams. So I've got 60% digestives and 40% custard creams. So I can actually write that as a ratio pretty much straight away. I can say, well, I've got 60 to 40. And then I can just go ahead and simplify that. So 60 and 40 has a common factor of 10. So I divide them both by 10. And then I can say 6 and 4 has a common factor of 2. So I can divide both parts by 2, which gives me 3 to 2. So when we're going from a percentage to a ratio, we put our percentages as a ratio, and then we just go ahead and simplify it. So it's a little bit easier than it first appears. Let's have a look at a more problem-solving one, and we're going to have a look at two problem-solving questions here. This first question says, at a cinema, the ratio of adults to children is 8:2. The adults were men or women in the ratio 1:4. What percentage in the cinema were men? Well, we're going to use the idea of writing as a fraction to then think about how we can write it as a percentage. So we're going to attempt this a bit like we did on the previous questions in the ratio to fraction videos. So we know first that the adults to children is 8:2. Of the adults, they were either men or women in the ratio 1:4. So first, let's think, well, we're looking at the adults here because the men are adults. So we can see we've got 8 parts out of a possible 10. And then with the men and women, we can see that men were 1 out of a possible 5. So using the and or rule, we want to say that they are an adult and a man. So we need to times these together. So if I times these together, 8 times 1 is 8, 5 times 10 is 50. Now to make this into a percentage, we need to write it with a denominator of 100. So I need to times the top and the bottom by 2, which gives me 16 over 100, which is 16%. So we're attempting it exactly like we did with the fraction to ratio, whereas this time at the end we're just converting it into that percentage. Last of all, we're going to have a look at this question here. At a shopping centre, the ratio of men to women is 6:4. 20% of the women were over 40. What percentage of all the people are women under 40? So let's start it how we did before. Men to women is 6:4. Then it says 20% of the women were over 40. So that means that 80% of the women would be under 40. Now we need to have a think about how we can first write our answer as a fraction. So looking at the adults, we know that 4/10 of them are women because 4 parts women out of a possible of 10. Now we can't just times it by 80%, which are the women that are under 40. But what we can do is if we convert 80% into a fraction, that will help us. So let's have a think. I know that 80% can be written as 80 over 100. It's just the opposite way around to what we've been doing before. And if I simplify that, I can say it'd be 8 over 10 by dividing the top and the bottom by 10. And I can simplify that even further by dividing the top and the bottom by 2. So instead of timesing it by 80%, I can times it by 4 over 5. If I do that, 4 times 4 is 16, 10 times 5 is 50. So that's my answer as a fraction, but I want it as a percentage. So all I need to do is write it over 100 by timesing the top and the bottom by 2, which gives me 32 over 100, which is 32%. Now what I would like you to do is pause the video and have a go at these questions. Once you've had a go, press play and we'll go through those step by step. Okay, this first question says, a farmer keeps cows and pigs on his farm in the ratio 2:3. What percentage of the animals on the farm are cows? Well, we've got 2 out of a possible 5 parts, and we can write that over 100 by timesing the bottom and the top by 20, which gives me 40 over 100. The next one, what percentage of the animals on the farm are pigs? Well, we've got 3 out of 5 parts are pig. And again, to make it over 100 times in the top and the bottom by 20, which gives me 60 over 100, which is just 60%. The next question then says, Chris designs a flag. 20% of the flag is white and the rest is pink. Well, if the rest are pink, we know that 80% must be pink. What is the ratio of white to pink? Well, we've got 20% white, 80% pink, and then we can just go ahead and simplify. I can see they've both got a common factor of 10, and now I can see that they've both got a common factor of 2. So dividing both sides by 10, and then both sides by 2. So my ratio would be 1 to 4. Now lastly, we've got one of those problem-solving questions. In a theatre, the ratio of adults to children is 7 to 3. The children are either boys or girls in the ratio 3 to 2. What percentage of the people in the cinema are girls? So let's write it as a fraction first. Well, 3 out of the 10 people are children, because I've got 3 parts out of a possible of 10. And then 2 out of the 5 children are girls, because I've got 2 parts out of a possible 5. Using my and or rule, I know that I want to say they are children and girls. So I'm going to times those together. 3 times 2 is 6. 10 times 5 is 50. To write that as a percentage, I want to make it over 100. So I times the top and the bottom by 2, which gives me 12 over 100. Now 12 over 100 is just 12%. So thank you so much for watching this. Hopefully that's given you an idea alongside the previous video on how to go from fractions and percentages to ratios and vice versa.